Hey everyone, welcome back to Ground Zero. This is episode 13. Yeah, we are running fast. Today we have Viv from Langchain. So Viv leads their work on open source agents and harnesses, the hot term right now. He's the person behind Deepagents, the coding agent that went from top 30 to top 5 on Terminal Bench 2.0 by only changing the harness. He's been writing some really good stuff with a lot of signal and alpha on what harnesses actually are, why agents should be more opinionated, the idea of harness as a service, and how planning agents are really just dynamic workflow generators. Before Langchain, he ran his own startup on visual understanding agents, and before that, was a scientist at AWS while doing his PhD in CS at Temple. We'll cover a lot into this. There's a lot to get into.
Dude,
Welcome to
thank you
Ground
for
Zero.
having me. I'm super hyped. I've been following you on Twitter a bunch, so yeah, I'm glad we're making this happen.
How are you doing? And would love to know your initial vibe check on Opus
Dude,
4.7.
first of all, doing great. Whenever there's a new model release, it's always like a good week for all of us. It's maybe like an even more fun week for like anyone who does like evals on all the models. So yeah, it dropped yesterday. We started like evaling it. We have our like set across our products. We have like open source evals that we use, and like also like for some of like Lang Smith's products that we use. It's a good model. It's a good model. I don't think it was like a crazy step change for tons of stuff that we're doing, but TBD. I think like the fun part about like stuff we'll like jump into, which is strong belief that every model needs its own like custom things that you add to it. I know like Anthropic released a nice skill that you can like easily convert prompts and stuff, but we're in the middle of that process for like the agents that we're going to use it for. So it's a good model, not a crazy step change, but we'll fit it. We'll make it good.
I mean, it is interesting in a way that I have been seeing a lot of mixed opinions right now. People have pretty much mixed opinions on 4.7. Basically, what they have doing it with the quota users as well. I mean, in just 3 4 prompts, you are running out of. I mean, there's a lot of good story. I mean, interesting story behind. But yeah, I mean, the kind of pace of what these models being coming up, be it OpenAI or Anthropic specifically, how they have been doing good at public perception and effective marketing, as I say. I mean, working well, working. I mean, it's been rewarding for
Yeah,
them
I
essentially.
mean they're great. They're great. They put out like great models. Obviously, they put out great products around the models. I think there's definitely
Hmm.
some stuff where people are playing a lot more with the models, and like they're basically like picking use cases that they use models for. So it's like everyone uses Cloud Code, like everyone uses Codex and that sort of stuff. But like when you build like your agents on top of those models, it's like I need to actually care about the prompts. I need to care about the context engineering. I need to like care about the tool design. And I think like that's where it's really cool to like us putting out content, like other like really cool people putting out content, which is like how do I make a model good at like my task basically? Because at the end, like my customers, that's all they care about, like it's
Yeah.
all I care about. And I think like that's like a bunch of the harness eng journey basically, like whether called context eng, whether you call it like agent eng, it's basically like fit some sort of system around this model to make it like stick at my task. And
Hmm.
that's like what we're all trying to do. And like Anthropic's trying to help us with that. Open models are trying to help us with that as well.
Totally makes sense. Let's dive in about your journey. So you went for a PhD in CS at Temple, and I mean, what to mention, you did your bachelor's, master's, PhD, everything at Temple. And this has been a talk of the town as well in past years on Twitter. People were talking about it. People have again, I mean, some opinions about Temple being a university, good university or not. So my question is to being a scientist. I mean, doing a PhD, then to being a scientist at AWS, to running your own startup on agents for visual understanding, and to leading open source agents at Langchain. How's the
Dude,
journey
yeah.
been like?
Happy to dive in. Cool. I'm from around this area. So I'm from like East Coast, Jersey, like Philadelphia area. I went to school at Temple, so I did my undergrad there, did my master's there, did like my PhD there. So like super early, I was like, I'm just gonna be a doctor. Like most kids, pressured by their parents, like I'm gonna be a great doctor. Like quickly realized like I don't really want to do that. Most of my undergrad, so I did my undergrad in math, and math is like really cool. I think there's a lot of concepts in math that like translate really well to CS and like physics and things like that. Sort of like systems thinking.
Hmm.
Math is also like, at least for me, maybe I'm just not amazing at it. It's incredibly hard. So like doing something really hard does prepare you for other things. Yeah, dude, undergrad was like really fun. I enjoyed math. I got into like some CS stuff. I think like late 2010s was when there was a lot of cool stuff in different parts of ML. So like I got into computer vision stuff, like undergrad research, And like I love vision. So like I think vision is still one of the coolest things out there. There's like way less research done on vision even today relative to text. Like
OCR is
yeah.
pretty hot term,
Well,
right? You know.
OCR is like now okay, just send the PDF to Claude basically, and like obviously a bunch of systems engineering around that. But yeah, man, like I loved Vision. I still love Vision. Vision was really cool. So like I did undergrad in that, did like research around that, and then I just went straight into like master's and PhD like right after I graduated, like early 2020s, and then yeah, my PhD was basically all around like vision focused representation learning. So yeah, maybe I can talk a little bit about that. So the first like topics that I was working on was like graph neural networks, which are like I don't know how hot those are
Mm-hmm.
anymore, but I do see like some really cool people still doing research around those. Basically like graph representation learning, but it's like graph representation learning for like vision, basically. So it's like if I like decompose an image into like particular objects and like I make a graph of that, and then I do like representation learning. Do we get like a better n vector for like retrieval, like classification? And then like we did this at also like the data set level as well. So like what if I have like kind of like few shot examples? It's called like transductive learning, like use other information in the data set to help you classify the next thing. Dude, that was really cool. Like I think graphs, I'm like bearish on graphs overall actually, so maybe a hot take, but like that was a really cool part of research. And like that was my first like dabbling into like computer vision stuff, like undergrad, and then my first like PhD topic, which did like it shifted a little bit after like the ChatGPT moment. Like tons of research became around. Okay, like let's do VLMs for everything,
Mm-hmm.
and let's do like a representation learning on the VLMs. Like what are VLMs like actually seeing when they're doing their like attention mechanism over images? So yeah, dude, it was great. It was great. I like really enjoyed my time in PhD. I think it's like you get some sort of unbounded time with your advisor to just pick an interesting problem and just like rabbit hole in it. So I did like retrieval stuff, like representation learning stuff. Yeah, dude, it was great. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. So I had a chat with TensorQT the other day. He started Paradigma. He dropped out of a PhD. So my question to you is, what do you really think about the scenario right now? The linkage between academia and the industry. And right now, if you have been like, if someone is going for PhD or something like that, so what do you really think about is this worth it, or how far we have come? Is still necessary to go for a PhD to? I mean, it is again very opinionated question, but still, I mean, I want to really understand your
Yeah, man,
point
absolutely.
of
So
view
like,
here.
it's a great question. Like people ask me this question, like locally, like my friends or like younger brothers and stuff. Yeah. So like maybe my PhD was like slightly different because I was doing research at Temple, but I was also doing research and like working on like prod projects when I was at AWS, and those are happening at the same time. And I like strongly
Mm-hmm.
believe that that is like a fantastic mix for anyone who wants to do like research, but then sort of understand maybe like how their research is going to be applied in like some settings. And I think today like the point
Mm-hmm.
basically of a PhD to me is like you pick a topic that you're like really deeply interested in and you like poke around the edges of that topic to try to figure out like how we can make like this thing better. And like that doesn't really require a degree to do that. There's tons of like sick researchers on X who just like post like random blogs and like they don't have a PhD. They probably don't maybe don't have a CS background, but there's like you just pick a topic, you like rabbit hole it, you just like push the boundary of what's possible and you do that like in a verifiable way. So you like write code, do experiments, you try to share like open research. And if you're able to find a company that allows you to do that, like Langchain's fantastic at that. Like I think they really cultivate like, hey, like we're gonna like pick this topic, we're just gonna like figure out how it works and we're gonna like publish content
Mm-hmm.
about it basically. I would say that's great. I think it kind of depends. Like if you find a great company, like a great founder that you vibe with that lets you do both. Industry is like amazing. And like, especially AI research, like it's super helpful across a lot of companies. Like, you can probably make a lot of money and like do interesting research at the same time. So yeah, kind of like a non-answer. But if you do find that scenario amazing, if you just want to like grind on like some sort of topic in PhD for like a bunch of years, also great. I actually don't think you can go wrong, like just by being curious and just exploring it.
Yep. I can see you have you were like working on your startup about visual understanding agents. So I want to understand your learnings there, and how do you see the vision space right now? Like how can you correlate between the time when you started and the time we have come so far with the current frontier state of the art research and
Yeah,
products building
yeah,
up?
dude. Yeah, so like I started that startup after I graduated like my PhD. So that was sort of like mid
Mhm.
last year with a friend. And basically like the main thing that we were working on, like startups called Agentify. And like the main idea was basically that basically vision compared to text like really lags behind in frontier models for like things like visual reasoning, but also things like perception just generally. So there's like tons of things where you like show an
Yep.
image or like an object, like two overlapping boxes to the model, right? And it's like it doesn't like fully understand that those two things like overlapping. And like part of this is just a perception problem in the visual encoder, where it's like some of these like fine grained details it's just not able to understand them with like the native training that it has. But that I think is like a fantastic opportunity because it's like how much of that gets absorbed into the vision encoder backbone versus like how much do we augment models with like tool calling behavior that they're exceptional at and actually use that as the mechanism to like take vision capabilities and like put them into the model. So like
Mhm.
that's basically the whole like idea that we were working on. So like research and like product around that, which is like what if I just took all of the classic vision models that we already have? And like a lot of this was honestly inspired by Meta's work on SAM. So I think like SAM and that whole series is like incredible. Like SAM 123. It also supports like video segmentation, which is like insane. And you can also like fine tune it. You can do like med SAM and things like that. So it's basically like bet was okay, models are amazing, they're getting very smart, but like their vision capabilities are lagging behind, but we can augment them with tools and like you can basically like do the right tool selection in the moment to like get that capability. Like segmentation is something that it was in Gemini Flash across the Gemini series, but like compare that to like SAM, right? Like SAM was like way better. If you just use like SAM as a tool compared to like the native segmentation of Gemini, you would be just like way happier. And like all you had to really do was like point to the right spot, which is like way easier than doing like semantic segmentation. So that was the idea. I still think that that is true in vision today. Like even with like Opus 4.7's new benches, it's still not as good at visual perception as like we need it to be. So I still think tool use is like really, really exciting for yeah, just for like agentic systems, like visual, basically making a bunch of like vision specific tools for your task and like augmenting augmenting your agent with that.
I think there is a lot of scope to do alongside UI bench as well. I mean, again, it's more about one's taste, but there are lots of ifs and buts, lot of nuances where you really need to take care of. Like even if you're cloning a website, I mean, there's a lot of scope to play around something. So my next question is about your work at Lockheed Martin. So you interned there. I think that was your first job. And honestly, a lot of what people see about world is kind of sophisticated reels on social media about American weaponry. So what was the reality like from the inside? What you were working on? How does it feel like to work at some defense kind of defense company? And what did the
Yeah,
experience leave you
dude,
with?
that is like such a throwback. So that was like my first internship at like tech ever. So I was like a bio intern in undergrad and I was like looking for internships. And I like, gave my resume and I got an internship
Mhm.
at like Lockheed Martin, which is amazing because like I don't know how good my bio resume was for getting like any internships. Yeah, man, I wish I could say like tons of stuff I did on it.
What do you mean by bio resume? It was like you were working on some
Yeah, so like I
biological
went to
stuff.
undergrad as like a biochem major because like I wanted to be like a doctor.
Amazing.
Yeah, so like then like after freshman year, I applied to like internships because I switched. I wanted to do tech after that, or like at least explore it with like a bio resume. And they were like, "Dude, like what? Like what are we doing here?" And then like I think I basically just like talked to the hiring manager and just said like, "Hey, I'm like really down to like learn this thing like which is like data science." And, like that time there was a bunch of these like data science courses and things coming out, so it was still like early. And I was like, "Hey, like I took these like Python classes and like I'm super down to learn this." And basically, it was like, yeah, I mean, it sounds great. I ended up working on the data science team there. And it was basically like my first introduction into like kind of like data analysis sort of stuff. So like understanding like it was much like stats basically. So like I wouldn't say it was like ML, but it was like
Mhm.
this is like intro to like making plots, like slice this data this way. So it was a bunch of just like empathy for like very very messy data as like my first internship, which is actually like very valuable
Mhm.
today, just like insane amounts of data, which is like does not look very clean. And yeah, man, I wish I could say more. It was basically like a great learning experience because I was kind of learning how to code and like doing like data science stuff. And then it was also like a decent confidence boost because I'm like, okay, maybe I can do like tech stuff. And yeah, I interned there and it was like fun. And then yeah, I didn't really go back after that, but I started getting into more like research stuff at school.
Awesome. Also recently I was just kind of exploring the timeline. I see Mike Mill, who is a pretty famous, internet celebrity, was looking for an AI guy, and you came up to Temple. Apparently, Mike was surprised how many Temple people are in AI. And so, did you end up connecting with him? Did you share anything about Langchain and stuff
Dude,
you're working
so
on?
Meek Mill is like he's like a rapper from Philadelphia, and like I
Yeah.
guess he lives around Temple. Like that's where he was from. And I think everyone was like when they saw that tweet, they were like Meek Mill's getting into AI. So I'm like, okay, let me just like reply basically because I think like honestly like randomly posting on Twitter X is like awesome. You can meet so many cool people like that, and I we'll talk about this, but I met like Harrison, the founder of like CEO and the CEO of like and yeah, he did not reply to me. I hope his like startup is doing sick, whatever he's doing. But like, I'll like repeat it. If he does need someone for help with like AI, I'm actually like 7 blocks down, so I could totally like just pull up and help him. So no, I think that's a good lesson though. Is just like randomly posting maybe. Like I'll just keep doing that, and then maybe something will happen.
Yep. Awesome. So, I mean, the next question to you is, so when did you join Langchain, and what actually pulled you there specifically? So, and since you joined, what
Yeah,
actually
dude.
has
So
changed?
this is so much fun. I was working on my startup like after I finished my PhD. That didn't work out. Like we basically stopped around the fall. At the same time, I was basically like doing my first foray into just like posting like random stuff on Twitter, just like my thoughts, like basically just like open source stuff, like hacking on random stuff. And from a bunch of the stuff I was posting around like so like last year, I also like sort of believe that like we have amazing models, but like because we did a bunch of stuff in this like visual understanding space with like agents and stuff, I was like very very confident that models need like some stuff around them to like help them do these tasks because like they just suck at them out of the box, and like we basically saw this every day. So like that's basically when a lot of maybe the ideas that were brewing around harness eng like started to maybe get more like crystallized, and I just started like posting about that online. So it's like, hey, like this is maybe like what harnesses look like. Like harnesses are like supposed to like wrap models, and like if we're trying to do like vertical tasks, it like really helps to have some sort of like opinionated like prompts, context engineering, like tool call structure, like all this sort of stuff. And I think I just like started DMing Harrison, like the CEO from that, which is like super sick. He is also always thinking about like the frontier of like AI systems, which is awesome. And then we started chatting maybe like late last year, just like, yeah, like what would it look like to build open source infrastructure around like agent engineering, and like maybe the best way to facilitate that is by helping people build good harnesses, like whatever good means. Like let's discover like what good means and make open source software about that. So it was basically like, okay, that sounds sick. And then I was like, I don't exactly know what I'm gonna do. Like maybe I'll continue like working on the startup, or like, but I would love to join something that like really aligns. So then I started working with like their open source team late like last year on what ended up becoming like what was Deepagents, but ended up becoming like a lot bigger. So yeah, we were working on like the very very early versions of like Deepagents last year, which is like one of our libraries at Langchain that we have. It's like our library to help people build harnesses, or at least it's one of the ways that people can build harnesses using Langchain. And yeah, I loved it. I love the team. Amazing people doing open source, and then I decided to join like full time in December.
Amazing. And I mean, the adoption is just crazy, dude. I mean, so I want to understand about the growth here. So again, I mean, right now Twitter is full of people claiming millions in ARR every month, and but like ARR feels like one of the most stressed metrics out there. So my question is, how has Langchain approached growth in real terms? Be it open source, be it community adoption, be it enterprise or
Yeah, dude,
anything.
it's a great question. So I think about this a bunch because like I think the best way to maybe think about it is like basically like work backwards from you want to like help people build stuff using like the tools you're putting out there, right? And like the goal is basically just like help people build like really cool things and like make that process of building as easy as possible. I think in like open source that comes through like very clearly because in open source I think you get a lot of like empathy for the end user because they're like directly using your product. Like all the code is like fully visible, like go inspect it. Also like put your opinions in like our GitHub issues and tell us like what's good, what's bad, like what should we fix, like what should we add. Also, like it's totally cool to like disagree in open source because like the maintainers sort of have limited bandwidth to address like all of the things, but we want to make sure that the most impactful things that are going to help like the most users build like the coolest stuff, like we like prioritize those. So I think there's a big part of growth, which is why I like really like X, and like these direct feedback channels or like Slack, for example, or just like messaging builders and customers, because you basically get to see exactly what they're doing. You build like a lot of empathy for, shoot, like this thing that we built, like it's a little broken in this way, or like it doesn't exactly like fit the use case. And then you hear a bunch of those stories and you sort of like work backwards to say, okay, like we need to improve like this part of our library, or like we need to like make it possible for others to improve our library as well. It's like an amazing part of open source that we get tons of like amazing feedback, tons of like user contributions, which is great because you sort of like grow with your community. And I think like that's a really big part of open source. And related to that, which I really, really like about Langchain, like one of the reasons why I joined and like I really enjoy working here, is there's a lot of like learnings that we get from all the research that I do in like open source and like putting stuff out there and getting feedback that slowly like make their way into our products as well. Because it's like, for example, a lot of stuff in like Langsmith, for example, which is like, okay, like how do you build good evals? Like how do you actually enable agents and users to build like really good evals? Like how do you like understand what's happening in traces,
Yep.
like mine signals from, like a lot of that we put out just in the open. It's like I did a bunch of blogs on that stuff. There's other people who are like hacking on that stuff as well. And a lot of the stuff in open source, you sort of see how the community interacts with it. You also just see the raw numbers and you put it out there. And it's like, hey, like I would love this, or like I'm using this. And it's like, oh, we should make that as easy as possible, put it into a product. And like if people love the product, then like the rest of it sort of takes care of itself. It's like, yes, you will make money, your customers will be really happy, and then like just continue the loop, like just keep making it better basically. So I think like, yeah, dude, customer feedback is amazing, like community feedback is amazing. So it's like a really, really big part of, I think, Langchain, a really big part of like a lot of the open source stuff that we do.
I can imagine, of course. And more specifically here, so you are leading the open source agent and harnesses work right now. So what does a typical week looks like for you? It's more about research, engineering, or
Yeah,
product,
dude,
whatever.
I think the fun part is like it is actually like a mix of a ton of stuff, and I like really, really like that. So it's like the goal is basically pick the most important thing to work on at this time, and then like we'll chat about it maybe over the weekend or like the week before. Like Harrison jumped in with us, like we'll DM, and let's just like sprint towards that and build it basically. And like maybe what that looks like lately, like a ton of my work has been on like evals, continual learning, essentially like methods for using like evals and continual learning to make like agents and like their harness better. So that's like basically like the research direction. And I would say maybe like 50% of the week goes into, okay, let's like pick a research hypothesis. Let's like figure out what the experiment design around that might be. So like for example, last week we were doing a bunch on, can you like just in time generate evals like for any given task? Like what does that look like? Like are you overfitting to them? And like what is your like fitting algorithm? There's like tons of stuff that we put out. There's like a lot of good content on like harness hill climbing basically. But yeah, essentially it's like
Yeah.
research, let's pick that task, kind of like a PhD. We're gonna make a hypothesis. We're gonna like run the experiments on it. We're gonna get metrics. And we're gonna post them all in Slack, and we're gonna like review them and like argue our takes about them essentially. Yeah. Then the other maybe bunch of percentage, like 50%, is like talking to customers, like talking to people like on Twitter, getting a bunch of feedback from them on like the open source stuff. Like how can we improve our libraries, whether that's like Langchain, Langgraph, like Deepagents, anything in like Langsmith. And then a bunch of that is talking with like product teams as well. So there's like tons of great teams at Langchain that do a bunch of good work on like all the products that we have. So there's tons of learnings that I think come from open source that we can like port back into the products that we're going to build. And yeah, just keeping that feedback loop is good. So I would say like it's a mix, bunch of like research and then engineering stuff, and then a bunch of like I don't know like what the term today is, but like DevRel, DevX, which is just like if someone asks a question on Twitter, like we should respond to them and we should like put our ideas out there and we should like be willing to engage with other people's ideas and yeah, just hear what people are saying. So it's like a mix. Yeah, it's a mix of those things.
What percentage of your article source, like article is coming from
Hmm.
this research source? I can imagine a certain percentage, but because, dude, I mean, let's just come to harnesses, like what is all about, the
Yeah.
lore behind harnesses, right? So you mentioned that the definition of agent is basically model plus harness, right? So I mean, this is something like, I mean, it is being in, like, people know this from quite some time. Like, this is a fact, but I think this is the cleanest framing anyone have seen, at least on Twitter. So if you're not the model, you're a harness, right? And a harness is every piece of code, configuration, or execution logic that isn't the model itself. So can you walk me through how you arrived
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
definition?
Yeah. 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 Dude, I think like it is definitely like a clean-ish sort of specification of like what is this thing that we're talking about. And I think like maybe the
Mhm.
definition doesn't really matter like as much like what the exact equation is, but like there is one thing that's helpful, which is
Yeah.
like when you're communicating with someone about like how we're going to make this agent better, we need like some shared language so we can talk about like what is the thing that we're going to optimize basically, right? So it's like I
Yeah.
like working backward from model capabilities because like that's sort of the thing that we need to wrap intelligence like wrap systems around to like amplify the intelligence of the model. So it's like I basically view it as there's some sort of computation happening inside the LLM, and like where that's happening is over this like context window boundary. So like all the compute happens when I basically like take context from like my system and I push it over the boundary and I put it into the context window like for the model to do computation on and then produce tokens basically. And like some of those tokens correspond to like tool calls and then I go and execute those tool calls and like I return the context back. And like the reason why I like that is
Hmm.
because like models by themselves they're basically just like token input machines and like token generators basically. But like we need to put a system around the model so it can do useful things. And I really like maybe like working backwards from what should the agent do and like maybe even like what does my customer want the agent to do and then like figure out if I just like give it like a really really simple model like maybe like really really simple harness can the model and like the agent basically just do that. And like if the agent can just do that with like a really simple harness, then that's like amazing because then we can just like give that to the user essentially. Where things maybe get like more interesting is like where like a really simple harness just like can't do that today. And that might just be because like it doesn't have the right tools or maybe like the model isn't intelligent enough to like orchestrate those tools in order to do that or maybe it's like some of our context engineering opinions in the harness aren't good enough and it's like hey like you're putting a bunch of like really big tool call outputs like into the context window and it's like confusing the model. We should find out ways to not do that. But these are all basically like harness level configurations that we're doing and they're external to the model. Like the model is basically just like a computation unit and it computes things over its context window. And like we need to decide what goes into that context window so it can do like useful work for us.
If I have to ask you some, like, three bullet points, what really makes a good harness according to you? What are they?
Yeah. So there's a bunch, but if I had to pick like three right now, I would say basically prompting and like very, very clear instructions. For better or worse, like there was this whole thing like prompting is dead. Like prompting's like totally not dead. It is like so useful, so helpful. And like I don't just mean like prompting in terms of just a system prompt. Like prompting also applies to like the tool descriptions as well that get like auto loaded into context. It also
Yeah.
applies to how well your like skills front matter explains like how to use these skills or like how to use like other skills. It also applies to like if you have subagents, does like the subagent front matter specify like when this should be used or like how to use it basically. So it's just like basically prompting that encodes really really good instructions from the user or on behalf of the user for like how to use this agent to do useful work. That's like super important. I think like prompting is honestly more important today than it ever was before, because our like the systems we have are way more intelligent, so we're able to guide them towards doing useful work more easily with good prompts. That's one. I think the other one that we're spending a bunch of time on right now is basically verification. So we did like some blogs around
Mm-hmm.
this on like making coding agents better, but there's sort of like maybe two things in verification. So like first is prompting, second is like verification. So there's like built-in verification that you might inject like into the harness itself. So like that can be like a hook basically. So like before the model tries to go and exit, like force it to like recheck the work, or like make sure.
What do you really mean by
Verification is
verification
basically
here?
like if I give, so for example, if we just use like all the terminal bench tasks, right? So like terminal bench tasks, like comes with like an environment, it comes with like a task, and then it comes with like a verifier that will run after the agent thinks it's done, right? But like obviously we can't use that verifier information. So like what the agent needs to do is like it needs to like self-verify its work before that verifier runs, to like be like very, very sure that the code that it developed solves the task that we're like trying to solve. Maybe there's two parts of
Yeah.
that. Like one part is we need to like teach agents what the useful primitives are for verifying their work. I think like one immediate
Mm-hmm.
one, if like anyone uses like the Claude model or like even like GPT 5.4, is like agents are very susceptible towards like picking the easy way out in verification, which is like they test like trivial cases or like not like very difficult cases. Obviously that fails in the verifier because it's just like, hey, like I checked like these three cases are really easy, so like I'm good essentially, and like that's bad. Like we should teach
Yeah.
agents to be much more thorough when they're like generating verification for themselves. That's like one part of it. The other part of it is like this is all code. So like we have in our repos tons of like unit tests and like tons of like evals that we already use. Like that is great context that we should give to the agent so that it can like run that eval suite, and that might be run with a hook, for example. Like I don't want, like maybe the agent won't run it by itself, but like when it tries to exit, that should just maybe run my eval suite or a subset of it, and it should inject the context or like the results back to the agent, so the agent can see like what failed, like what passed basically, because like we need some sort of signal to give back to the agent so it can like fix the thing that it generated. So it's like self verify or like use external signals from like existing evals so you can like fix the things that are going wrong. And I think that's like a really, really big part of it. And like maybe the last part that we're focusing a ton on is high level. It's kind of like orchestration basically, but for doing things that are more long horizon, basically like it's problem decomposition, and like making sure that like when we use like sub agents to do problem decomposition, like two things are true. So one is we're picking the right model slash like agent for the job, because like every model is like good at different things. And also that this is a lot of context engineering. We're basically like bounding the sub problem that the agent needs to do in like a decent enough window that it can like manage it. And basically what I mean by that is um, I wanted to like do things in like a 50K to like a 150K token range, roughly, or like 200K. Like, it sort of, it depends on the model, but like I don't want to give a subtask to like a sub agent if it's so big that it's like, okay, it's gonna start getting into like really, really high context zones, like dumb zone, which like Dex calls it, from Human Layer, which I love. And yeah, so it's like efficiently being able to take a problem, decompose it, and then use like sub agents as like compute sources to like do those problems and like filter stuff back to the main agent. And like some of it is just good model choice. Like for example, like we find that maybe the GPT series like 5.4 is exceptional at like planning, which is amazing. And like Gemini, like I find is like really, really good at like multimodal stuff. And so actually so is like they all
Mm-hmm.
are, but like Gemini is like really good at it. And like Flash is actually amazing bang for buck for like speed, cost, and multimodal stuff. And like a lot of this is just informed by like dog fooding and evals. Like, hey, like we need to like test these models and figure out what are they good at. So yeah, I think those are the three maybe roughly. And there's like way more obviously. So it's like prompting, like systems around like verification, like self improvement, like via traces or like via evals. And then the last thing is like kind of like orchestration, but maybe it's like context engineering around problem decomposition.
Makes sense. You just mentioned about 5.4 for planning. So pretty much I think it not just a black box, but it is kind of a reasoning sandwich where I mean you mentioned as well X high for planning, high for execution, X high for verification. Like running only at X high scored 53.9% due to timeouts versus 63.6% at high. So I mean that's counterintuitive, right? I mean, does more reasoning made it worse
Yeah,
or
so
what?
I think this is basically touching on like the point that I think about a bunch, which is like we need to like what we try to do is basically like we're trying to design like an agent system around like a task that we need to solve, right? And like that task has maybe like a bunch of constraints. Like I think the one you're talking about is maybe like the some of the terminal bench work that we were doing and just trying to publish. So yeah, like for that use case, we also had like an artificial constraint, which was like we have a time bounded run essentially. Like after this amount of time, like the sandbox just like exits and like the run doesn't get scored, or like the run gets scored like wherever we left the state of the sandbox. And yeah, so I think maybe the takeaway from that is less that like maybe like X high reasoning all the way through like wouldn't have been better. It actually like does a great job. It just takes like a really long time. So then it like runs out of time to like complete the task. But also it's like not compute efficient and it's not like cost efficient. Like it's awesome to like run X high at everything all the time and spend a bunch of tokens on like every single problem. Like practically speaking, you have to pay for the tokens. And like also like practically speaking from like a user experience, like am I just gonna wait for GPT 5.4 to just like think super hard all the time? Or like can I use a smaller model or like a cheaper model that I like write really good instructions for and it can just go do that task like immediately. Then my user just like sort of gets like a more, like latency reduced interaction. So it's like, yeah, I think main takeaway is like X high actually for me is amazing. And I do a bunch of like planning in X high when I'm like just coding. But because like when I'm in the loop, I want like feedback because like it's annoying if I'm just like staring at a blank screen. I use like high for a bunch of like in the loop coding. So like X high planning and then like high for execution. So, but yeah, it just depends. It like totally depends on like the work that we're doing. I think it's like the main thread that I think about.
Awesome. Okay, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And I have seen that people are preferring 5.4 XI codex over Opus 4.6. I mean, now 7 has like mixed opinions. I mean, anyways, again, like you said about what about harnesses and everything, and there was potential a lot of news about file system as well. Like I can't give a count the number of blogs I have, number of Twitter articles I have read about file system, right? And even like in your anatomy post, you said that the file system is arguably the most foundational harness primitive. So, I mean, it's a strong claim. And previously, Obsidian CEO also mentioned about everything just about file system. So, why the file system, and how does it kind of make it really influential in this harness design and things around agent engineering? What other
Yeah,
tools or
I
systems
mean,
out?
I'm like incredibly bullish on file systems. I think like a ton of people internally also are, and like a ton of people across industry are like very bullish on file systems. So like one of the early decisions in like Deepagents when we were building it last year was basically like using the file system, and that was more because we saw like two things. One, like how useful it actually is for context management, and like two, agents are just exceptional at using file systems already, right? So it's like it's kind of two things. Like the model is already very, very good at using this tool, so I don't have to coerce it a bunch to get
Yeah,
good at like using these sort of like patterns.
yeah.
And like now, like with newer models, it's probably even like post trained even more on getting good at file system stuff. So that's like amazing. The other thing that's like really amazing about file systems, or like basically the concept of a file system, I'll maybe like generalize it a little bit, which is like I need some sort of like persistent storage that my agent can use to both like access information and then like offload information. And like that's maybe the higher level primitive. Like a file system ends up being like a really, really easy way to do that. But like the primitive is like the LLM, the model basically has like this computational boundary that I put stuff into and like I can take stuff out of essentially, right? And like all the compute happens here. And the decision for like where to store stuff and like how to access it, like file systems end up being fantastic storage primitives to do that. And like the reason why I say like the concept of a file system is like in like Langchain, like in our libraries, we have this concept of like virtual file systems where it's like you expose file system like storage essentially, right? So like the operations that you would do on a file system, for example, like ls, for example, right? Or like you're like grepping over that. It depends like what your underlying storage system is, but can you like use existing storage, like for example, like S3, for example, or like Postgres, right? And then like what does it look like to use that as storage and then like put it over the computational boundaries, so like the agent can like search over this stuff and like pull it into context. Like agents are exceptional at doing that. And the other thing is like context management is so important because like the context window is like where all the computation actually happens, that we need some mechanism of
Yeah.
achieving that, which is like why I'm so bullish on file systems. It's both like, and then actually like maybe one more thing I'll add is now that we're doing a bunch more stuff on multi-agent orchestration and like multi-agent like collaboration sort of stuff. So I think I said like a little bit about decomposing like really big problems into like sub problems, right? But like where should all of that work get stored for all of like the decomposition that the sub agents do? So like file systems actually also become excellent like collaborations places. So like sub agents can like write to particular files and like main agent can like read from there. And like it doesn't pollute like the main agent context window a bunch. So it becomes like a place where you just like write files and like files are basically excellent scratch pads. They're excellent like planning places.
Yeah.
They're excellent like persistent storage places if like an agent needs to come back to something. And this sort of like primitive that files encode information really well, like file systems offer like interfaces to like external storage that already exists, and like it really helps with context management. Like all of those things together I think make it really really good as like a harness tool for like an agent. And I think a lot of harnesses like basically like, I think everyone has like settled around file systems. Like it's not like too controversial to say like I'm going to give my agent a file system and like that's a
Yeah.
part of my harness, you know, like people just sort of like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's interesting to know, right? I mean, this is something so basic, something so fundamental is kind of changed the whole trajectory of the space in like 6 months, and everyone is kind of getting adapted to this thing. And on the same note, you have also mentioned about memory via agents.md, and this is something you kind of connect with, like injecting in start, and you also call this continual learning. So I'm very interesting to know about why do you think so, and like is it really, or is it more like a persistent or consistent notepad? So what you really think about this could be
Yeah,
aligned to
yeah. So I
continual
think like
learning?
a ton of like my work recently has been around like this just general idea of continual learning, basically. So like how do I help my agents, which are producing a bunch of data over time? Like I'm using, let's just take like my personal agent. Like I'm using this one agent a ton over time,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
producing a ton of data, which is like traces essentially, right? And then like all those traces, like I'm storing somewhere. Like we store them in Langsmith. You can put all your traces in one place. And how do I update the definition of the agent in order to learn from all of the data that it's producing, right? So there's like maybe two ways to really do that. And memory is sort of a sub piece of continual learning. Like continual learning, like overall to me, is as I'm acting in the world and as I'm like sort of like producing data, kind of like how we humans do, like I'm doing the stuff in the world and I'm like learning from the feedback that I'm getting, right? Like I ran and I tripped and I fell when I was a kid. And like this is a great trace stored in my brain to say, like, please, like, don't do that. Same thing for agents, but the way that we actually like update the agent knowledge is like really different, probably because like we don't understand exactly how like experiential memory that humans experience, like how does like my experiential memory as a human get encoded into my brain. Like I don't exactly know how that process works, and we need to do that process essentially for agents. And like the agent's computation boundary is just its like context window basically. So I need to be able to like take learnings from the past, and I need to be able to like do two things. One is um, inject them into the context window at the appropriate time, so
Mm-hmm.
that when that scenario comes up, it can like use that prior information to like fix the thing. Like for example, maybe this comes up in like user memory for coding, right? It's like you're doing a bunch of like coding with your coding agent, and then like you give it has that trace, and like maybe you like annotate that trace with human feedback saying like, hey, like the way that you did this, or like you use this library but like we never use that library, so like please like always use this other library, right? And it's like, okay, like great, should that piece of feedback and like context, should that always be in like my always on memory, right? Is that like just in my agents.md that always gets like loaded in, or is this something that gets injected like in real time into the agent like contextually? This is like why I'm super interested also in like search as a way of doing this, because like I think it's like almost like unfathomable the data scale that we're going to start producing with agents. So like agents run like all the time, nonstop. They produce like millions of tokens like every few minutes, and like that's a ton of information that we need to like sift through to figure out what's useful from that and like what's not useful from that. So like search is like a really big part of distilling a bunch of trace knowledge into like nuggets or like memories that I can actually retrieve that are useful, because like tons of that trace will actually be noise. So it's sort of this process of like distilling great data, which is like trace data, but into nuggets that I can actually like bring into context when I need to. That's like one. And then the other one that's like really interesting for us is, instead of just selectively and contextually pulling the right thing over the like the context window boundary for like computation to happen over it, so like context engineering, like you can also just touch the weights. So like we like lean in a bunch into like open models, and like I love open models. I use like GLM5 a bunch, like a ton of the team does as well, and that's like amazing as well. That's like continual learning by using feedback from traces and like distilling that into data that you can do like RL on essentially, and like making that process a lot easier. And both are really interesting. Like we're leaning into both, and I think both will happen. So it's actually not going to be like an or like everything will be RL or like everything will be like context eng. Like you totally need both, because there's like tons of things that you don't want to RL, or like it just doesn't make sense to like fact-based retrieval. Like you can like include that data in there, but it makes more sense to do search in order to retrieve some of that stuff. So it's like, yeah, those are maybe the interesting bits that we're sort of leaning into, and like sort of.
You just mentioned there are tons of things which you don't want to RL. So can you mention what kind of arenas do you think we should go for RL or we should not? Like where there is like it is constrained by compute
Yeah,
resources or
so
anything.
I'm like super bullish on, if you're a builder or a company producing some sort of like data in a vertical, and you want to like do two things. One, make your model way better at that task and like basically like fit to your data, fit to your use case. And then also like make it like way faster and like way cheaper. Like RL is something like definitely like worth exploring, because fine tuning has gotten like way easier in the last whatever year. Like there's actually like amazing companies that will help you fine tune if you like bring the data, if you massage it properly, like you store all your data in like Langsmith, and you can like pull it down to do RL over it. Um, in terms of things that you like should RL on, or you like shouldn't RL on, I think it's really great if you have some sort of like vertical that you want to like make your model like really good at. And I think we see a lot of companies that have started, okay, like I'm building this like model and it's going to be really good at search, and I'm going to expose that as like a sub agent to like my main agent, and like this sub agent is going to rock at that. Or it's like this model we like fine tune on a bunch of our like customer service data, and like it's really good at that use case, or like finance data, for example. Or like even yesterday, like OpenAI released Rosalind, right, which is like all about bio. That's like amazing, right? And that also like sort of it butts heads with this whole idea that the general purpose everything is just going to like kind of like subsume everything, right? It's like I'm gonna have like one general agent that's just gonna like, it's gonna be so good, it's just gonna get exactly what I'm saying, it's gonna like solve the task. Like maybe in the limit that is definitely maybe gonna be true, but like today, like we have to build for today, you know? So like today it's super helpful actually to take the opposite view, like curate a ton of data and like pick a niche that you really care about, or like that your customers care about, and like build the best data for that, like build the best harness for your model around that, and just like sort of rocket that task. And I think like RL is amazing for imbuing sort of like vertical specific skills into an open model and you get it like way cheaper, like way faster. And like depending on the original like training distribution of that task in like the Frontier Labs like data mixture, like it's very likely that your fine-tuned model will be better than that open model, or sorry, than that closed model at that task as well, because like you have the data and you like fine-tuned it. And like
Yeah.
maybe like where you don't want to use RL for is like I honestly think it's a really good idea just to start with harness engineering, like or like just really good context engineering, because it's so easy actually, like relative to RL, that just like pick your model, like design like a really really simple harness around it first. Like for example, we have like this abstraction in Langchain called like create agent, which is just a React loop, and then you can like build a bunch of stuff on top of that until like you don't need to anymore, or you can use like Deepagents out of the box if you want to. And yeah, just like go and build and maybe start with harness engineering. And like maybe the other point was like there's things like fact-based retrieval. Like fact-based retrieval is just it's just like maybe more of a search problem. Like I just want to find the thing and I want to inject it into my context essentially. So it's like yeah, that might be like one example. Where it's like hey, like you can RL this thing and maybe you RL in the domain, but like the way that you put it over the like boundary for computation at the context window is just find it essentially via some search mechanism.
You mentioned about search previously, right? Like you will be going for search, like essentially. So there comes this concept of context route, right? So you cite the Chroma research on how models get words on as context fills up, maybe compaction, tool call offloading, skills as progressive disclosure. So which of these has the biggest impact in practice when it comes to context route, and what are the kind of potential practices you specifically use
Yeah,
to avoid these?
they all matter actually. And I think it sort of depends on like the design that you're going for out of the box, right? So I think like maybe like a good recipe essentially is that like we start building the agent with like a goal in mind. Like I want the agent to do this thing, but like really really focus on like context rot, because after you pass like some sort of like context threshold, it gets like just like really dumb. And like you said, we have like levers to fight against that, which is I can use like sub agents to decompose the problem into like more manageable chunks so I don't pollute my main context window. Like that's like amazing. But like basically what like predicates that is that I can actually efficiently decompose the problem, right? So it's like maybe that's like instructions that I give in the system prompt to the agent of saying like this is how you like decompose a problem into like these tasks. And like if it's like a task specific agent, then you probably already have a bunch of like human priors for how to go tackle the problem. Like for example, for coding agents, the way that we decompose a problem is like you have agents that do like sub agents do like code based search essentially, and they like do
Yeah.
that separately and they pull in the important information into like the main agent to do some of that stuff. And like maybe there's like a web search agent as well, like has to go like pull external information and like find that and prepare it for the agent. So it's like, yeah, basically like working backwards from like, I need to avoid context rot. Like one way to do that is like sub agents. Like, is my problem amenable to like sub agents? Like if it is, fantastic. Another way to do that is like, and these are often in conjunction. Like we in like Langchain, like our docs, we publish like a bunch of stuff on like multi-agent docs as well. And skills are kind of related to that, which is skills to me, they basically kind of like encode knowledge and workflows. Like skills are awesome because everyone before skills like hated writing good docs, if that makes sense. Like everyone was just like so
Yeah.
lazy and they were
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna like tell the model like some sort of like random stuff, like kind of like hand wavy, and it'll just get it. But like for some reason, like skills came out, and like because maybe skills are like shareable, and like other people like see the skills, like everyone writes like very very good like workflow
Very good. Yeah.
descriptions in skills, and like the agent sort of like sees the skill content and then it executes the workflow, and that's like amazing because I basically get like a very small snippet of like when to use this skill, and like I avoid all the context rot, and like when necessary we like pull in the right context from the skill into there. Like the tricky thing with skills is always like basically knowing when to trigger them, and that again comes down to like instruction following, which is like we have some skills evals as well where like we'll have scenarios, and then we'll sort of have like the skills that we want to have like triggered basically. And then like we have evals where it's like we only want that skill to be triggered because like let's say it like triggers a wrong skill first, and then like eventually it does a bunch of like stuff, and then it figures out like, oh, actually I need to do this skill. Like that's bad because you wasted a bunch of tokens essentially. So I think evals help a bunch with context rot, which is one, does the problem succeed at the end? Like that's a really big part of evals. And the other one is sort of like fine-grained metrics on the evals, which is like how long did it take? Like how many tokens did it take? What was the overall cost, right? And then like reading the trajectory and then seeing like in my effort to reduce like context rot by doing like sub-agent routing or like triggering the right skills,
Huh.
is that working? And then there's like maybe also like deterministic stuff, which is good. So like tool call offloading. So like this happens a bunch with like bash calls. Like you have you run the shell and it's just like a mess. You get this gigantic like like this output string, and you can just pipe that into context, or you can just take like the head and the tail and you pipe that into context because that's usually the important bits, and then you tell the model that like the rest of this string lives in this file over here if you want to access it, and then you can go and do that. So it's basically like doing a bunch of stuff on the model's behalf to really protect that like incredibly precious artifact, which is our context window. And like we
Mm-hmm.
we just think like really hard about like if something doesn't need to go in here, like really like don't put it in there. But if something does need to go in here, like do our very best to like spend compute on like search or like really good instructions to make sure it gets in there.
Makes sense. Interesting. I mean that actually makes a lot of sense. I'm curious about, so for people who may not know the space well, so there's been like OpenClaw boom. I mean, I just saw on Twitter it is kind of declining as well. So Hermes has been getting as much attention as OpenClaw, right? Which is coming out of news research. So how does Deepagents differ from both of them? It would be useful to explain this from first principles for both technical and non-technical listeners, since we are going to spend a lot of time about
Yeah,
harness in this conversation.
both amazingly sick projects. Like OpenClaw, amazing, like what Peter did there. And then also like what the new guys are doing with the Hermes, like so cool. Yeah, I think like the main way that I think about it is like you have this like claw architecture, right? Looks like a little bit different from like claw to claw, but like overarching architecture of like I deploy this somewhere, there's some sort of like messaging,
Yeah.
it's like live, like talk to it back and forth. There's like a heartbeat that triggers like over and over again. It has like some sort of like memory primitives in there. So it's like, it's basically like a very opinionated harness for the use case that is like my personal agent. So I think like a claw is like really the first, it's the first like really mainstream personal agent, like maybe like besides ChatGPT. Like ChatGPT is like it didn't like really feel like a personal agent. Like it had like memory and stuff. Like people like message their claws like all day. Like maybe people do that with ChatGPT too, but it's like the architecture of the harness behind like the claw that makes it like feel really personal because of
Mm-hmm.
all the things they put behind it around like the integrations, like WhatsApp and Telegram and those types of things, and like the memory that gets updated. Like the big thing is honestly like I like the heartbeat thing a lot. I think like that doesn't get enough hype. It's like very ingenious to like wake it up on some cadence to like do things, for example, crons and things like that. So the way I think about it, like high level, is a claw is an amazing choice of an opinionated harness for like a personal agent essentially, and that's like an
Hmm.
awesome choice that like they make, and I think we should have like a lot more of these. Like people should like build their own, or like people should use them more and see if they like them. And then maybe like going back to like the primitives, I think like you can build tons of agents that are not claws that like completely solve like your task like really really well, and that's basically like how I view like maybe like Langchain's create agent or like Deepagents or like all of the other great companies that are like building harness primitives, which is your probably your task does not require like a claw, like most likely like it's awesome, like you should have a claw in your life, but like if you're doing something else, like you don't need a claw. So like actually what you need is amazing instructions, amazing context engineering, like amazing choice of like what models you're going to use to hit like the Pareto frontier of like perf cost and latency. And like you can start from like a simple harness and you can assemble a harness around like that model or like models to like build that thing essentially. And I think like Claw is like one instantiation of an opinionated harness for like personal agents basically. And it's like awesome. And I know like people use claws like other things as well. So like I think claws, if you like edit the harness around them, like the base harness, and you like make them, I don't know, if you like change them for like another task like research, that's like awesome too. But I think like that whole process of like taking a task and like you have a harness that like wraps a model or like models and like you sort of like direct it towards a goal. That's basically I think the goal of like Langchain's like create agent and like Deepagents, which is we have like some opinions in there to get you started, but like really we want to help you build the best agent like for your tasks. Like that might be us giving you all the tooling. That might be like me and like the rest of the team like blogging about like actual use cases and like sharing our evals and like just publishing results. But yeah, basically like customize the base harness to make it like really, really good at a task. And like a claw is a like phenomenal example of it.
Makes sense. What you really see the future of it? I mean, let's say down the line, what the next, uh, what it would look like after, let's say, five iterations of it, or what you really see the future of in, yeah, again, in a year or so,
Yeah.
or let's say in
I mean,
6 months.
honestly, in a year and 6 months, like everything's gonna change, obviously. No, I'm just kidding. Like it's hard to say. Like I'm like in the short term, very, very bullish on basically helping people build like open or like us providing open infrastructure to help other people build agents that are like amazing for their task. And I think that is not going away in the near to medium term at all. In fact, I think it's going to go in the complete opposite direction, which is like everyone is going to start basically taking their tasks and they're going to either do like harness engineering around those tasks, which is largely like very good context engineering, like very good like prompts and very good tools and like very good skills. They're going to do all of that around like some sort of task they care about, basically. And I think open harness engineering is a big part of that. And I think like open models are also like a really big part of that, which is we're going to see like a big growth of I'm going to take like Kimi, I'm going to take like GLM5, and I have this data. And like a big future is I'm just going to like fine tune that model on my data and I'm going to make it really good. I'm going to just keep doing that over and over again. And I'm going to compare how that does to like a frontier model. And I'm going to make the trade off between like, is it better? Is it like just as good? What's like the cost? What's like the latency trade off? And then like maybe like a little bit more like long-ish term from that, which is like it would be awesome if we got like some sort of like AGI model that just did everything. I would love that. Like so then I can like totally stop talking about like harnesses and like evals and I can just like enjoy the model. But it still really does help to specify like the intelligence that we want that model to like act on in a particular situation. And like I still think even in like the medium to long term, it's going to be super helpful for humans to get really, really good at both describing the thing that they want and not just like hand wavy, like writing like kind of how we like write really detailed prompts, like getting comfortable with taking the thing I want and like putting it into like language basically. And then the other thing is we're still going to want to like verify the work that agents are doing in some way. I hope like autonomous verification systems get a lot better, but like they're not going to be perfect and we're still going to want to be able to say like when an agent is doing good versus like when an agent is doing bad, and that can become like part of the feedback signal. And I still think that's going to exist like for a little bit, and like that's like not a bad thing. That's like totally fine. Like we can still work on that.
Makes sense. Dude, there are a lot of, bunch of companies. Interestingly, everyone who is working on Frontier coming out of their own harness, own their own agent. So recently, RAM basically built their own harness, right? So have you seen what they put out? So, and my other question is like, you yourself have used open code. So it seems like enterprises building custom harnesses puts real pressure on competitors. So I'm guessing a release like that forces companies like Slash, which also got recently big funded, who's competitive to RAM, and others to build their own thing too. So what do you make of this trend
Yeah,
which is
I mean,
happening?
like the ramp is amazing. Obviously, like they put out such fire blogs. I love like ramp lab stuff. I think like the overall trend of like building your own harness or basically like building your own agent that's custom for your task is like fantastic. Like I think more teams should basically devote time towards like investing maybe like in the process of both like helping their teams build agents, right? Like that doesn't just mean like coders. That means like everyone, like the people who are doing go to market, like marketing, sales, all those people can like benefit in some way from agents. They just need like help doing that basically. And I think it's great that a company basically like picks a problem and they're like, we're gonna solve that by building the best harness. And that means like the best context eng, like the best verification, the best tool stack. Also, a big part of it, and like we work on a lot of the stuff at like Lang Smith, is building the correct or building like really easy to use systems for taking the trace data and then like improving the agent. Because I think there's a lot of stuff around improvement loops, which is our first pass at the agent isn't amazing. So like these companies are like, okay, I'm gonna pick a task I care about, and like my first version is gonna be like kind of mid, totally fine. But then I'm gonna get the data from somewhere, and I'm gonna like make it better over time by just like spending a ton of time on it, or like maybe spending a bunch of like compute on it to like understand the data and like improve the prompts, like fix the
Yeah,
edge cases, like improve all the errors, right? And it's just like I still think like we will have tons of vertical companies because today like someone has to do the work. Like someone has to like invest in doing that. Like someone
makes
has to
sense.
do like sales around that, right? It's not just gonna like happen by itself. And I think like more tooling around that and like more, yeah, just more like research that helps people do that. That's like a good thing. And like doing the open is like an even better thing. So it's like more.
I think it's also very ambitious to do, you're already at frontier, and why to depend on someone? I mean, if you want to be at frontier, you have to build something like what other people at frontier are working on. Interesting. So before going to the other segment of the podcast, let's have some
Yeah.
quick fire chats. So there is a meme you liked from Mentally Fly Slack. Would be awesome if you can share screen and share that. Yeah, please, then I'll go
Dude,
ahead with
yeah.
the
Let
question.
me let me get that up. I love this guy. Let me share. Dude, this guy's so funny. Oh, dude, I love this guy so much. Dude, this guy. This I don't know like where this came from or like who. Can I turn on volume?
So, I mean, you like this from Mentalify Slack channel that apparently went viral across, I think, SF startups. So, what is it and what it made it so hard? What's the
Dude,
role
I
behind?
have no idea. I think it's Nick. It's Nick from Mintlify. Like tweeted it one day. Who's funny? Like I was just like, this is amazing. So I just sent it to all my friends, just like randomly. I think it was our like soccer chat. I'm like something happened with like Arsenal or something. I sent this to like my friends because I think they lost. Yeah, and like now we have this in our Slack as well. Like someone made it into like a GIF, and like whenever maybe something goes wrong, like we just sort of throw this guy. Like I don't know what it is or who made it, but like I love this guy. I use it all the time.
Awesome. My next question is most underrated harness feature that nobody talks about.
Most underrated. It's a good question because like I feel like if it's underrated, we should be talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. I think like one thing that we use a bunch is like this idea of like we call it middleware, but like hooks just generally. So like for a lot of teams, it's like super useful to inject sort of like deterministic actions, or like basically like do deterministic code execution like somewhere in the harness. And I think that's like super underrated. Maybe because it requires like sort of like custom logic. It's not just like you think of a tool and you just sort of like add it. But yeah, I think hooks that sort of like control bad model behavior are like really really helpful, or like not just bad model behavior, like help the model like do things. So for example, like triggering triggering like self verification. And I think people should like build more hooks to control their models.
Makes sense. Interesting. So, we have something which people should talk about. Interesting. The model that surprised you most in agent
This
workloads
should,
this year, in both. I mean, we can go in both ways, which was like something which you were not expecting and it comes out really better, and something which you kind of not expecting and it was like it comes out bad.
yeah. So I'm like so impressed by open models generally as like actually ways that I get work done. And like I think like it always like feels really good to talk about open models, but like you sort of like love the idea of open models, but then like you don't use them. And like that's not good. But actually, like the open models that have come out this year are like amazing. So like the GLM series is like fantastic, and like it is actually a good agentic coding partner. It's like very fast and it does amazing work. So like maybe at the start of this year, like last year, I don't think I would have expected my GLM five, like my GLM used to be so high, and there's other models too, like the Archie team who you had on, like they're amazing. Minimax is one that we actually like eval on a bunch, and like these are all amazing. So like open models have surprised me. Like I was hoping it would happen, but it did happen, and that's awesome. And like we should invest a bunch more in that. And like I hope, like I hope like teams actually like think about using them in like their actual workloads because they're amazing. Yeah, that surprised me, but in a good way. I was like super happy, and like it's only gonna get better, and that's like really really
Yeah,
good, and it's like way cheaper and faster.
awesome. Okay, this one is last. One thing you would change about how the industry builds agents right now. It can be any common practice or something like that.
How should they change? I think basically like this whole thing that we've been talking about right now is like I would love if like that was like easier for people to do or like more people like did it, which is basically like maybe like work backwards from a task and like a goal that you really want. And then like the whole point to me is just like build a system like for your team or like for yourself and like for your agent to like make it better over time. Like maybe like I'm saying that because I'm like we're thinking a lot about like continual learning. So this is like both the agent design, which is like prompts, tools, like the whole harness thing, like the verification loops, like all this sort of stuff. And then also it's like sort of the infrastructure around it for doing like self improvement. So this is like the unsexy stuff, but I think the stuff that like really matters, which is okay, like are you like is tracing on? Like are you like putting your traces somewhere basically? Like are you using your traces to like mine errors like via monitoring basically? It's like Langchain supports that, and like we think about that a bunch, which is like trace came in, like how do I figure out if something happened, and like am I making evals from that, right? And then like am I like reading the evals basically? So it's sort of like the systems approach around like building an agent and like making it better. I think teams are doing that. That's amazing, but like it's awesome, and I think teams should try to do that more.
Makes sense. Also on the same note, there was this recent paper
Mm.
called Meta Harness, and DD has also posted about it. A lot of people are working on auto research, and this field adjacent, if not a version of auto research itself. Then you have also things like post train bench, where a harness is used to post train models. So if those two directions start merging, so better harnesses improving post training and meta harness improving the harness loop itself. I mean that feels pretty explosive, but interesting. How do you think about that
Yeah,
convergence?
I think it's super exciting. Like I love teams that are like productionalizing like auto research and like doing so like we have I think we did like something around like harness opt maybe like a couple months ago, and there were definitely like some issues that I saw back then, and I think we still have like some of the issues, but like now like a lot more teams like putting a lot more effort into it. So it's like I think it's amazing that, and then also maybe I'll just like this is my take as well. So like I've like we put out a bunch of blogs, and I think like there's like algorithms that we need to discover to make like agents and harnesses better using some sort of like grounding signal, and that's basically like auto research is like I have a grounding signal and I hill climb that signal, and like I update my harness, and like meta harnesses that, and like we have one it's like better harness, and like we tons of good people have like work around this, which is amazing. And basically like I view like evals as such an important part of this like feedback loop, because like evals are basically how we like ground our like auto research loops over time. And it's not just like ground like in the moment. Like if I run auto research like later, like a 2 weeks later, I still have that same like grounding mechanism. And maybe hot take, but I think like you can almost try to define an agent via a set of like evals that sort of serve as not just a spec, but a spec that you can like verify and like ground. You can do it via fitting to like evals, and then you have model, and then you basically have like a fitting algorithm, right? And the fitting algorithm can be like meta harness or like better harness or like any of these. And that fitting algorithm is basically run on evals, like reflect on traces, and like update harness or like prepare data to do like RL on it. And I think like we're in such early innings of this self-improvement loop basically, and I'm super excited about it. I think it's like really cool. There's like stuff to work out around overfitting and stuff, but like that will happen and like people will use this a bunch more.
Awesome, makes sense. I'm pretty
Yeah.
much looking forward to. As we are approaching to the next, last segment of the podcast, we have some questions around RL environments, harnesses. Pretty much harnesses we have covered, but evals and benchmarks. Around benchmarks, so how do harness fit into this broader idea of simulation as a service? So there are companies whose whole business is simulating work categories, decisions, operating environments. If better harnesses lead to better simulations, so where does the open source side go? And do you think Langchain will eventually release an open source simulation
Yeah,
stack
so
as
like I
well?
think these two things are super related. So like the thing that we wrote about before, there's like evals and like environments, like they're not the same, but they sort of like rhyme with harnesses as well. So it's like basically like the main idea is like I need like some place for my agent to do work that sort of like reflects actual work that's going to be doing like in the real world, basically, right? So it's like I'm going to build an environment, and like there's tons of like awesome environment startups that are like doing that and like running the agent in them so it can produce like a good feedback signal so I can like train on basically. That's like amazing. I think like even a big part of like evals are going to start looking like environments because like when we first started trying to like eval LLMs, it was really simple. It was like chat completions evals, right? It was like I'm gonna give you like a really simple like input prompt, and then I'm gonna have like a number or like a structured output at the end of it. I'm just gonna like map the keys, right? I'm gonna be like, hey, did you get them all right? But as agents are doing much more like complicated work and like much more like long horizon work, actually like the thing I want to eval is like a task essentially. And like the best way to maybe do that is to just like build an environment and just like drop my agent into the environment and like maybe like what we do right because we actually do this like we basically use Harbor, right? And like Harbor, those guys are awesome, like the terminal bench guys. um, so like we'll
Yeah.
take our eval, like it maps to some sort of like Harbor config, and then like we run the eval in the environment that we built. Then like all of the traces like go into Langsmith, and then we like read them and we like segment them based on like the rubric, like how much did it pass, how much did it fail, like how long did it take, and then we try to like improve the agent. And I think that process of like building the environment and like you asked about simulations, like I think about this a bunch, which is like what I really want to happen is the company that we're building or like the app or product that I'm building, like I want my agent to be able to like test itself in that exact environment so it can figure out like when stuff goes wrong essentially, and then I can like fix it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like that's
Mm-hmm.
basically the whole point of evals, which is like they're sort of like a proxy for what happens in production. And like as I fit to my evals, I'm kind of imbuing like behavior into the agent to make it pass. So the whole goal of evals is like to make them pass, right? Like and like a lot of our evals fail because like maybe the models just aren't smart enough yet. But like eventually they will pass. And like then what I've done is like I've taken that information from that eval and I've sort of like transfer learned it into like some sort of agent, whether it's like the weights or like the harness or something. And yeah, I'm bullish on both. I'm bullish on like evals as a mechanism of doing like agent improvement, and also bullish on like more evals looking like environments basically instead of like just like input output.
Pretty interesting. You know, this terminal bench 2.0, sweep bench, pinch bench. So the benchmark landscape of for agents is growing fast. But you explicitly say in your opinionated agents post where, you say test on real world uses for your product. Don't trust benchmarks. Your user has never heard of terminal bench 2.0. Please don't introduce it to them, right? So, which benchmarks do you actually trust, and which ones are most performance theater? What's the general landscape where one should
Yeah,
actually think
I
of?
was definitely a bit hyperbolic. Like don't introduce anyone to Turbo Bench. Like I love Turbo Bench. Like those guys are awesome. But I think the general point actually does stand though, which is like evals to me are basically like again they're like a mechanism of like evals and benchmarks. They're basically like a mechanism that like proxies behavior that I want my agent to actually have like via this like thing which like roughly measures that, right? So it's like I'm trying to measure like long horizon like problem solving. Like can I do that with like a really hard terminal bench task? Like kind of, maybe, but like if my actual like app has nothing to do with that, then like me passing that like terminal bench task, it doesn't map well into like my like long horizon problem solving like the bio domain, right? So it's like there's sort of like rough proxy signals that measure like, so like in at like Langchain we have like axes that we try to measure on. So like every eval we tag to like an axis, where it's like retrieval, it's like problem solving, it's like planning, it's like tool use, for example. Like we'd like try to tag every eval. No, we do that. We tag every eval to like one or multiple axes, right? But I think it's useful to use benchmarks as like a general like vibe, like a guidance. But like you should definitely read the traces from benchmarks. Like we like I like spend tons of time every day just like reading the traces from pre-built benchmarks. But I think really the thing that helps teams is using their trace data to build evals for themselves that actually like map onto their customer use case that maybe like no existing benchmark like does a really good job of. And I think like it's kind of like a moat, if you want to call it, but it's like it's just a really good way of like building a better agent product, which is there's awesome people building awesome benchmarks. None of those benchmarks map exactly onto like what my agent needs to do. So like I can like use those to roughly measure problem solving ability, but like really the best way to measure problem solving ability is just to like get a representative set of like evals and tasks, like my own bench, and just like use those. And like that's going to vary from like person to person, like product to product, like feature to feature. So
Makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What's your opinion on computer use stuff? Because this is something very subject to people. Like the current approach is not good. You can't really go in the screenshot way. You really can't use MPI or MCP or API way. You have to bullish. You have to scale GUI stuff. So what do you think about it and about its
Yeah.
scaling part of
Dude, we were just talking about this today actually. Like how much should we do like more examples on computer use? Like I'm like very fascinated by computer use. I think it's like super interesting. I think like there's maybe
it?
like two things. One is there is still definitely like a visual perception problem like that like we've known for a while. Like fine grained details is not it's not like amazing at that. Maybe it's like less of a limitation now. Like some of these models are like better at computer use. I don't know. I don't have like a great opinion on which way of doing computer use is going to win, like the hybrid, like pulling down like the actual like web page content and then like clicking versus like how much do you use screenshots. I would be like very happy if like everything was just worked with vision, because that would mean that we have made like a step change in like visual perception
Yeah.
and like visual reasoning over screenshots and like doing, or sorry, like yeah, visual reasoning over like images basically. Yeah, I don't know if it'll happen. But I'm like for the applications of computer use, I think they're awesome, and like we should do like more stuff around those. But I don't know. I just haven't played with it as much.
I mean, yeah, awesome. Makes sense. So, I mean, do you think there is some secret sauce, something which can be scaled to scale more long horizon tasks? About in your experience, what is something which is blocking? Because I think a lot of companies are being forming up environments for long horizon tasks these days and been selling to enterprises and frontier labs now. I mean, what do you think of the space about scaling
Yeah.
long
So
horizon
I
tasks?
think like there's a lot of like good work that a lot. I think a lot of companies have like good agents in like medium horizon tasks. Like for example, like we have like a background coding agent that can go like do things over like hour, it's like a few hours basically, right? It's like they're all coding related tasks. Like it's easy to like pick those and like scale those. And I think yesterday there was like really good work from like the proximal team for like Frontier Suite, which are like, hey, like these are like 20-hour tasks basically. And like we're gonna go and run on those. I think like one thing that is still like really, really tricky for models, and I think like in the near term, what will happen is like hopefully like models get like post trained better on this, but like we will still have to build a bunch of like harness infrastructure around it, which like hopefully falls away. Is one, like decomposing a really difficult problem into like sub pieces and then doing like verification of the intermediate steps. I think like that is like a really, really good general purpose recipe that we can use to like keep doing like longer and longer horizon tasks. Because like basically like all a long horizon task really is like I'm gonna do I'm gonna get this like really hard task. I'm just gonna do like a bunch of like little sub pieces like over and over and over again. And I need to make sure that like I don't mess up any of the sub pieces, or like if I do mess up, I need to like go back and fix those. like the key thing is like figuring out like when you messed up. That's hard. So we need like better like self verification systems
Yeah,
there. That might be like self
makes
bootstrapping
sense.
like
Yeah.
testing, for example. And like the other thing we need to do is like teach systems how to like decompose problems into like sub agents. I think like there's really cool stuff around RLMs around this. They're like I still find them like a little bit tricky to get working, but like the ideas behind them are like amazing. Basically, like externalize context as like an object, and then like sort of like search over that and like decompose problems like that. For like really long horizon tasks, I don't know, it doesn't work amazing right now, but like the general strategy of like verify and then like decompose like iteratively, I think that's like a good path forward. Like we're spending time there as well. I'm sure like a bunch of other people are as well.
Awesome. Great. I think we are pretty much to the end of the pod. And so, what is something which you are most excited about to happen in, let's say, again in 6 months or a year? Because again, like we pretty much don't know, but you really want to see to
Yeah.
to happen.
Two things. Like one, I'm super excited for the World Cup. So like World Cup is happening like here. It's happening in Philly, so I'm like
Mhm.
super stoked for that. But besides that, I think like the thing I'm like super stoked about is we're like just starting to get the first sparks of these like self-improvement loops from data that's generated from
Yeah,
agents, and like we're pushing like a ton on this like in the last like couple months. Like we put out like first like research around this. There's other good teams doing this, but I think like this is like such an amazing on-ramp for us, for like all teams, to self-improve like all of their systems by doing like very good like data engineering, like looking at all of their trace data, like mining it for errors and like bootstrapping self, like probably to start, they're going to be like semi-autonomous self-improvement loops. Like humans will need to be in it, but the systems will get better and better. And I think the flow of build agent, use it in environment, generate data from it, and then like mine the data, point a lot of compute at the trace data to derive like evals and to derive training data, and then like use that to like improve the agent, just keep doing that loop. That is like super exciting to me, and it already works actually. Like every like people are like we're doing it, like people are already doing it. It like works. Customers are doing it. It's awesome, but it will only get better. I think with like better models, and like everyone's gonna build better systems around some of this stuff. So yeah, I'm stoked. In 6 months, like I can't even imagine like how good this loop is gonna be. It's gonna be amazing.
likewise, totally. What's the next block
Dude,
coming?
next blog. Um, okay, I'm supposed to write one over this like weekend. Yeah, hopefully like next week. Yeah. Oh, maybe like one thing that's cool I like Langchain is like because we talked in the beginning. I actually think blogs are like fantastic like artifacts like work backwards from. So it's like your team does a bunch of like amazing work, and like you should like totally share that work. So you can
Yeah,
like kind of like pick like a blog. It's like I want to write a blog about this, and it's like okay, like what's all the work I have to do to make sure that like, that blog doesn't like suck, basically. Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, reverse engineering.
Reverse
I think like there's
engineering.
one I'm thinking about a bunch, which is like, it's less like agent engineering stuff, but more just like how much we like unbundled like agents. I think there's been like a huge like unbundling of agents, uh, into like pick a base harness and like pick your skills, like pick your tools, like design your agent, like design the models, and it's not just like one monolithic system. Like you totally like, don't have to get locked into anything. Like you have the choice to build like bespoke
Yeah,
tooling for yourself, like for your company, and like the unbundling is awesome. And like I think like people are doing cool stuff around that. So hopefully like I'll like riff on something about that or something, or just like whatever. I don't know.
great. Okay, we last question to you. So imagine um, so the world is the technology is changing by an order of magnitude every week. We all can see. What advice would you give to someone who is just starting out of college, who is someone 20, 21 year old? Because things are not same as it has been, like I can say it's been like couple of years ago. It's not the same. The world is changing so fast, and it's sad to see that lot of people are actually, I mean, don't even care about what is really happening, right? So even like if someone is starting out college, so what should they really look forward to? I mean, to be at frontier and to actually scale on things, to actually learn and be at good places. So what's your opinion
Dude,
over
yeah.
that?
I don't know how amazing advice I can give on this, honestly, but like maybe like some like general thoughts. of like what I was thinking when I was like finishing like PhD and stuff. And also like there's like so many sick like kids who are just like graduating undergrad already, like that I see on Twitter doing great work. I think like there's a couple like common threads which are really cool, which is basically like you just sort of like pick something you're like kind of interested in, and you just use like AI to help you learn that, and you just like kind of like rabbit hole like really deep into that one thing. And I think like that's probably like really really useful because you can kind of maybe use AI to become like top maybe like 10% or like 5% of the world if you like care enough and like the problem is not like super crazy. And I think like that's like really good. And the other thing is like I think like it's awesome when people just like post their thoughts like online. And I was thinking like it helped me like meet a lot of like cool people. I see like awesome like posts on X and like I love interacting with them. But I think it's basically just like it's kind of scary to maybe like put your ideas like online. Like, dude, I'm gonna get like roasted. Like, first I'm gonna get roasted like by my friends who are like, dude, why is he posting so much on like Twitter about like AI? But it's totally fine. Like, you kind of like get over it. But like, it's just like really good to like sort of share your ideas because it helps you like other people like challenge you, and then like you realize like, oh, like that idea was dumb, or like maybe that idea was like really good, like resonates with people. And like the only way maybe for like other people to like really help you is if they like see your work or they see your thoughts. And then like I think so, there's so many people who are like willing to help. So just like maybe like pick something, just like grind on it, just like post about it basically. And I feel like if you do that enough times, then something good will hopefully happen, or like you'll have learned something, which is also like really good.
Dude, this is so honest, and I can totally relate with both of your points. And basically, this is something which I have experienced again, like because there's so many trajectories, so many arenas opening as AI is evolving to learn to actually make you context aware about things. I mean, it can be anything. It can be post-training side of things, pre-training, inference engineering, environments, data, a lot. I mean, you can't really keep it up about things. So again, as you said, use AI, use your knowledge sources, like read good blogs, references, hack on, experiment on. And this is something, and that is the reason. I mean, even good professors, a lot of colleges are not actually aware about things. So I think this is the best time to learn and actually dig on things. And I think there are wide arenas where one can master one thing, right? Because everyone needs master of something and get into places. And I mean, it can be anything. It can be even hiring as well if you're really good at it. So you can make it to the places, of course. And as you said about posting about stuff, dude. I mean, this is so underrated. I mean, if you are a really good poster, if you can really kind of convey your thoughts well, amazing opportunities can open up. And this has been happening for me, and I have seen a lot of amazing people being to places just by like I've interviewed a bunch of people. I can give example of Kalomes. He's 19. He who just did a Reddit tweet. He went to meet Shopify CEO, then he got hired at Prime Intellect. So I mean, there's so many people who have just gone to the same trajectory just by posting their thoughts online. And it is so fascinatingly
Yeah.
rewarding. It is actually rewarding. Totally. Awesome. I think we are at a wrap. So thanks, Viv, for everyone listening. Deepagents is open source. Everything is on GitHub, and absolutely you read Viv's blog coming on Twitter. It's just amazing, and that is something which has led to this conversation. So I hope more and more of them coming, and follow him at
Yeah.
Viv Trivedy 10 on Twitter.
Yeah, dude, this
Thanks
was
for
so
coming
fun.
on.
Oh, I had a blast. Thanks for having me.